Welcome everybody to the August 2025 Outdoor Ethics and Conservation Roundtable. We're delighted to have everybody here tonight and kick off this program year with our topic being take only photographs, leave only footprints. And it's going to be a great presentation and look forward to hearing it in a few minutes here. So we're going to follow the same outline we followed for the last few years. After our opening, we're going to have our safety moment, and then we're going to have Marty DeWitt present to us on take only photographs, leave only footprints. Then we'll move on to our announcements and our closing from there. And then for people who have the time and are able, we'll hang around afterwards for discussion, questions, and just general chatting, getting to know each other. So if you would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Scout sign. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Two. Now join me in the Scout oath. Scout sign. On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country and to obey the Scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. And the Scout law. The Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. And finally, the Outdoor Code. As an American, I will do my best to be clean in my outdoor manners, to be careful with fire, be considerate in the outdoors, and be conservation minded. And with that, filling in for Michelle this month is me. So Michelle is out leading a level 2 course in Oregon right now, and she's out in the woods having fun. And I'm so happy for her. So she prepared this, and this one is on proper hiking and trekking footwear. I wonder why that came to her mind for this month. I don't know. But anyway, proper footwear is very important when you're hiking to ensure safety and foot support for the hiker. I think anyone who's been around hiking a long time will certainly vouch for that. A lot of younger people probably don't believe that, but it's very true here. Proper footwear very directly impacts your safety and your whole experience. A good shoe is stable, provides support, and protects against many of the hazards that you'll find on the trail. So there's a few tips. One is to measure your foot so you know the proper size. And I would say that don't measure it yourself. Go to a store and let somebody who knows what they're doing help you with that. And you really want to try it on. You want to wear it. It's important that it fit well. You don't want to have blisters. You don't want to have sore feet. You don't want to have any strained muscles, foot injuries, anything that can come from having your shoes that don't fit right. So before you go on a big trip, take time to try on different shoes if you can, and be sure to break your shoes in, get yourself comfortable with them, go on hikes so you know that they're the right shoe for you, the right hiking boot. So when you do try them on, be sure you try them on with the kind of socks that you're going to be wearing with the boots. That's a problem as a Scoutmaster I saw with many of my youth. They went to the store with their street socks, and when they went out in the trail, they put on their hiking socks and things weren't good. So be sure and try them on with the socks you're going to wear when you're out on the trail. If you're going to use any orthotics, any foot inserts, be sure and try them on when you put them in when you try the boots, because those can definitely impact how they fit your feet. When you try them on, don't just feel about are they comfortable, but feel, are you supported? Are those supporting you? Is it keeping your ankle stable? Try rolling your foot a bit and seeing how well that that boot supports you. Another thing is learn how to lace your boots properly. And that's one thing to talk to somebody who knows what they're doing and help you out with it if you don't know how to do it. And then also think about, do you want to have waterproof footwear or footwear that can be waterproof? Where are you going? A lot of times we're buying footwear. We don't have multiple on the shelf. We're going to have one that fits for everything. So you're going to need to think about that and think about, how do you want to have it waterproof? Most of the time you want to have it waterproof, particularly in colder environments, just because wet feet not only are no fun, but they can be a health problem. So finally, check your boots every time you go out. I have to confess that I just found my hiking shoes this past week have a blowout, and I didn't realize it. The last time I took them out, I had a blowout on them, and I didn't know it till I checked them out before going out last week. So check them out every time you go out. So that was the safety moment. And with that, I'd like to introduce Marty DeWitt. So Marty DeWitt is not only a nature photographer, but he is a former park ranger in South Dakota and Vermont, I believe. He's very active in the photo club in Sioux Falls. He is very active in teaching other people about taking photographs in nature. This evening, I asked him to talk to us about taking photographs and how to take good photographs, but more importantly, how do we protect the environment? How do we leave what we find? How do we respect wildlife while we're out taking these great photographs? So with that, Marty, can I turn it over to you?
All right, thank you, Paul. Let me share my screen here. I think I need to have you stop sharing here.
Okay.
Replace current share. There we go. All right. Hopefully everybody can see this full screen here, but
We do.
yes, we good?
We're good.
Okay, thanks. Well, thanks for the introduction, Paul, and thanks very much for the invitation to join you folks tonight. Kind of pleased to be here because this is one of my passions, photography. It's my therapy in many respects. And so I'm happy to share some of my experiences with you. I do have to admit, going into this here, that I think I was more under the impression I'd be presenting to scouts as opposed to leaders. So I'll take a little bit different bent as we go along here, but I understand it's being recorded. So by all means, feel free to take it back to your councils and use it however you wish, because it is really kind of geared to those photographers on the ground. And the whole premise of this is making a difference, doing the right thing for your photography or with your photography. And Paul provides you a little bit of intro to me. Yeah, I've spent about 40 years working with state governments in Vermont and South Dakota in a variety of different park management and park enforcement positions throughout the years. And but along with that journey, photography has also been a steady part of that. I do have to admit, I wore the shirt many of you have on for about 20 years too in the Sioux Council, from Cub Scout leader on up through Boy Scout leader, and did my stint at many a summer camp and sea base and all those fun adventures. And I do have my older son who made the rank of Eagle, so we're kind of a scout family from a long way back. But the focus of tonight is, why are ethics important in the world of outdoor and nature photography, and for that matter, life in general. The You've already gone through the Scout Law as your introduction to this evening, and I shared this just as a point that many of these prerequisites of the Scout Law also apply to what our topic is tonight, and that's outdoor ethics. And so, why? Why is that important? Well, as many of you realize, our country is a rich collection, a tapestry of natural, cultural, historical, all sorts of different environments and biomes and that type of thing. And, from the vast array of plants and living things, plants and trees, of course, the fauna, the wildlife, bird life. We have a multitude of very fragile and wild areas throughout the country that preserve unique geological formations, those types of natural occurrences. We also have the cultural aspect of it, the very early indigenous folks and the prehistory of this country. And more recently, of course, the settlers, the movement of settlers and early pioneers into, well, where I'm speaking from South Dakota, our history is a little bit shorter than many of the areas that you come from, but it is important to keep that history first and foremost. And more importantly is to the recreational community. Many of these resources apply themselves for recreational uses as millions and millions of people each year escape to their natural surroundings of the national parks, state parks, county parks, city parks, doesn't matter, but these important resources are out there. And regardless of what your journey might be, these areas are preserved and protected for your enjoyment. Well, that's not without its problems and challenges, and therefore there is kind of a growing need to espouse ethical behavior amongst everyone, but for tonight's discussion, nature photography. But why is that important? What role do we play? What kind of things can we do? And why is it necessary? Well, as many of you, I'm sure, are aware, the great outdoors is becoming more limited in size and availability. The news is today is full of stories of pulling back on some federal, state lands, converting those lands for different purposes, cities selling off property for commercial development, and the encroaching recreation or residential and commercial buildings. So our great outdoors is becoming more and more threatened as those areas boom and grow. And that can have a dramatic impact on our natural resources. And overcrowding, as I see, because I travel across the country and visiting parks and areas, and I've seen over the 50 some years that I've been doing that, I've seen a great change in the effects that overcrowding is causing, not only to the resource, but to our experiences as well. A typical trip up through the Rocky Mountains, you can imagine this recreational or this natural experience is a little bit impacted by this level of crowding and use. And of course, we're basically loving these areas to death. So, and more, we're finding access is being restricted or limited in some cases to some of these real popular and iconic sites. For instance, Acadia National Park on the Maine coast, the the drive up to Cadillac Mountain is so popular now you need to make reservations weeks in advance and you have a timed entry permit and you wait in line just to get that experience. But times have changed and that's a result of it. Many of the other areas have resorted to shuttle services. Initially, as I visit the parks now, I have to be careful because quite often some of the things I see kind of raise the old ranger hackles that I've developed over the past 40 years. But I see them doing the best that they can to provide continued access and experiences, but yet protecting the environment, protecting the resource, and making it safe for visitors. And so in many respects, that outdoor experience that we're all in search of is being somewhat threatened. But there are some things that we can do. When we're talking about the overcrowding, we're talking about the high use areas, we're talking about, like you folks were just talking about, a lot of there's a lot of concern going into the near future here about how the reduction in ranks in the parks and the Bureau of Land Management and the U.S. Forest Service and other federal and state agencies being impacted. What impact is that going to have on the resources when there's no longer people there to care for, maintain, and provide the people controls that are needed? And those are some of the challenges. But today, we're going to focus, no pun intended, but we're going to focus on the fact that it seems like most of these people are now what they'd call photographers. Everybody's now a photographer, whether it be with their smartphones or, well, basically the best camera is the one that you have with you at the time. And this is where I spend a lot of my energies now. I teach a lot of workshops and seminars. I do one-on-one classes. In my retirement, I work at a camera store here in Sioux Falls, and so I do their classes and workshops and spend a lot of time kind of trying to instill. And we work a lot with young people as well. The 4-H, the local 4-H, getting them ready for their local fair photography exhibits and that type of thing. So really active in trying to get the word across on some of the things I'm going to share with you tonight. So what are some of the things that we can, and in some cases, must do? Well, whenever we're talking about outdoor and nature photography, we need to know about our subject. We need to learn everything we can about the subject that we're after. It doesn't matter what it is, but there are advantages and benefits to learning as much as you can about what it is you're about to photograph, whether it be a landscape, a hidden waterfall, or a unique species of woodpecker. It doesn't matter. Learn your subject because that's going to improve your chances of succeeding, and it's going to allow you to make better choices in preparation of your trip. And so if you're going out to photograph the bison on the prairie, well, you're not going to look in the woodland areas. You're going to know to look out more in the prairie settings. And in the case, I like to use the example of the burrowing owls. When people think of owls, they think of looking up in the trees like the great horns or the barred owls or the saw-whets, those types of things. But the burrowing owl, it nests and lives basically in abandoned prairie dog mounds. And so once you locate a prairie dog town, you see the abandoned mounds, and in certain areas, you may very well be blessed with observing the antics and behavior of the burrowing owl. So knowing more about your subject is going to improve your chances of scoring those memorable photographs. Um, Follow the rules. This is the ranger part of my background. The rules are there for a reason. We sometimes may not understand them. We may not agree with them. We may not know why they're in place, but we need to rest assured that these rules are in place to, again, protect the resource that we're enjoying and protect us from hazards in that environment and hazards from other people in some cases, and a lot of crazy things that are happening nowadays. But one example I'll use, this spring I was out at the Outer Banks off the coast of North Carolina. And during the nesting season, it's a sensitive time for the terns and plovers, a lot of different shorebirds and seabirds. And so the Park Service posts a number of areas restricting the access to these nesting areas. And it seems pretty simple. That should be pretty clear, pretty, straightforward as to what we need to do to react to that. But this is what we see. The people just disregarding totally these requests for care and protection, and just wandering through because, hey, it's all about me. This is what I want to do. This is my goal. We're not going to worry about going around 100 feet down the beach or something like that. So it's kind of disheartening to see this. And I like to stress that, we need to think about more than ourselves in these cases and respect those rules and regulations. So otherwise, one of the stories that we went through, of course, during the the past federal shutdowns when staff were furloughed, the use at the parks wasn't curtailed, and many of these sites were forever damaged just because the lack of care and respect for the resources. The garbage was piled up. People wouldn't pack out their own stuff. And I think this is a strong suit for the scouting organizations to continue to foster and help those that respect for the environment to grow. We often talk about the no trace uh, approach to outdoor recreation or anything for that matter. Um, and the title that Paul coined for the presentation, of course, take nothing but pictures, leave nothing but footprints. That's kind of an old cliche. I'd like to expand that a little bit by saying now, I just assume you didn't leave the footprints. Um, because there are many cases, especially in these fragile in ecosystems with the Arctic, the tundra, the crust, the fragile crusts that we find in many of the parks. You know, trails are designed in certain areas and to allow access to enjoy these and experience these areas, but we need to stay on those trails. And so I like to encourage people to, be cautious of that. I've seen too many photographers, especially in small groups, go out. There's a wildflower or something that's unique, and they'll go off the trail to find this wildflower. And the next thing you know, now you have a trail. You have a new path, and more people are going to follow that. I've also seen the people that will break away a couple flowers or plants either side of the one that they want to photograph and forever, damage that for future people coming down that. But the footprints is a unique um, a unique kind of approach to illustrate this. Watch your step, watch where you're going. Here we are at the White Sands in New Mexico, and these gypsum sand dunes are very, very soft, very, very pliable, very movable, and a simple step off of the path or off the little draws, you can see starts a kind of a sand slide. Now, at White Sands, they aren't necessarily real concerned about this because overnight the winds and the shifting of the dunes is going to cover this. However, when we look at some of the other situations where um, this inset is courtesy of the USGS service, and these are actually footprints that were found in formations at White Sands in New Mexico, and they are believed to be from 20 to 23,000 years old. And so our impacts are simply walking across, in this case, just a simple mud flat in the Badlands of South Dakota. You can see the footprints kind of coming up from the lower left there. What impact are those going to have thousands of years down the road? So we just need to think big picture, think a little bit more broadly and beyond our own personal experiences, and realize what little things can have big impacts. This is something that gets a lot of attention in the news. I'm sure many of you have seen the memes that circulate about don't pet the fluffy cows. And we're kind of notorious for that out here in the Black Hills of South Dakota and Yellowstone and places like that. But it's important to keep our distance as photographers from the different species. We get a lot of tourists that come out, and they I think for some reason they don't realize that in these park areas that they think it's kind of a petting zoo. They think these are tame animals. And so, it's not really an ignorance thing. It's just they're uninformed. They're not up to speed with really that these are wild and dangerous animals. And so, again, the park ranger in me has often had to stop parents from approaching. I had one mom that was trying to set their young toddler up on the back of a bison cow that to take a picture of it, and I nearly had a coronary in trying to stop that because I knew what was about to happen. But if you've seen any of the cartoons with the bison with the blue jeans hanging from its horn, we can claim fame to that de-pantsing right out here in our very own state. So again, it's important. This is a Custer State Park traffic jam. But what you see is a large bull and a cow, and there are young calves wandering right through this traffic jam. And these people are all, especially the gentleman with the long gray hair there, he's moments from significant harm. And again, not realizing the risk that they're in. So we have to really keep drilling down on this encroachment. Not only is it scaring I mean, it affects the wildlife. It modifies their behaviors, it curtails their feeding, especially if they're feeding young. And so there's all sorts of reasons to. This example again of the burrowing owl, I was photographing these owls one afternoon and they were feeding their young. They were hauling grasshoppers back and forth and feeding their young in the dens. And I went down the road about a quarter mile, turned around to come back to find a little bit more better viewpoint because I was using a long 800 millimeter lens to capture this. And when I got back, these gentlemen here had found that they thought it made perfect sense for them to go and set their tripods up right over the top of that nesting mound that I was photographing and setting up this video camera. And I don't know who they were shooting for, but they didn't have authorization from the Park Service. And so they were reported to the rangers. But that kind of, in their case, the comments they made to me when I visited with them, that kind of arrogance has no place out in these areas. So um, it's it's just I can't stress enough that we need to be respectful of the wildlife in those areas and let them. That's their home. We're the intruders, so we need to minimize that. We need to be courteous of others. That's not just for photography, but that's for everything. We're sharing this space and the great outdoors. And yeah, we might have a different motivation for going out there, but it's important that we realize other people are out there and possibly for different purposes, different reasons. So if we're photographers, and in many cases we have professional photographers going out and using these outdoor settings for their senior pictures, their wedding pictures, engagement pictures, those types of things. And that's cool. That's great. That's a beautiful backdrop for those types of activities. But it shouldn't preclude other people from their enjoyment. And so we just need to learn to share. And sometimes that becomes a competitive issue. And we'll see some other pictures of these folks shortly. But we need to realize that there's others that are either trying to travel through these areas, they're trying to see different parts of these areas, and we need to basically share the resource so that everybody gets something out of it. This is a little bit outside the bounds here of what we do as photographers. But I think this falls back on the pervasive impact of social media right now. Um, when we're out, I spend a lot of time with photographers who are avid bird photographers, and they're out searching for a specific lifeless species or whatever. And there's always, with the shifting of climate and the shifting of weather patterns, migration patterns have shifted. So we get new and different species rolling through during the migrations that we might not normally see. Well, now it's become, rather than just a snail mail word of mouth, it has now become an instantaneous broadcast of, hey, there's a great gray owl in the tree 2 miles north of this intersection of 437th and yada, yada, yada. And the next thing you know, boom, you've got a parade. And these have very detrimental impacts. Um, we've had instances where some of these species have become habituated to public presence, and that they've become friendly. They've been looking for, because we've had some less than scrupulous guides out there feeding and baiting some of these species to come in so their clients can get those iconic, National Geographic shots. But we've had species that have met their demise. been hit by cars and things like that. So there is an impact just by, calling your bud or texting or posting on Facebook that, hey, I saw this great gray owl and there's a northern hawk owl or something like that. And then the next thing you know, it's a negative impact on that resource. So another thing that's kind of reared its ugly head here as of late is the real advancement, the lightning advancement of Photoshop, digital manipulation, and now this thing called AI that's coming down the pike at us. Um, I think as far as ethics go, I think it's important to be truthful about what it is you're doing and what you're representing. And, kind of the basis is for that we're seeing and it's nothing new. It's been going on for, as long as photography's been photography. Matthew Brady, the great photographer during the Civil War, he had pictures of Abraham Lincoln in places where Abraham Lincoln never was because they were able to do the laborious cut and pasting. And back then they could change and move things. So it's not something new, but it's become mainstream now. And so quite often we have these national wildlife photo contests, and it's not unusual that the winning shot turns out to be a captive animal instead of something in its native habitat. So that misrepresentation, I think, is very important. But I'm all for art. Photography is an art form, just like painting, just like sculpting, all of those different media are art. You are the artist, but it's important that you don't falsely represent and try to sell off something for what it's not. If it's okay to make it artistic, like this, I could say I saw two bear cubs duking it out in the wild on the Browns River in Alaska. But it's at the Bear Country USA Animal Farm in the Black Hills with when I was out there with my grandkids. So we do need to be forthright, and I think it's a neat story if you're talking about behaviors, and I think it's a comical play on the subject, and it has its place. But let's not try to misrepresent some of the things that we're doing. But again, this AI, I think we're all kind of watching with bated breath as to what AI is going to contribute as far as photography and art is concerned. Already it's making inroads to where, the source for most AI generated images is based in somebody's work. And AI is just wholesale. These algorithms are just pirating images that have been shared on whatever media and using them for their adaptive purposes. Now, this was taken right off the deck behind my house because I just happened to be right on the flight lineup for the local runway. And you get the full moon. You can follow Flight Radar 24 and see when the planes are coming in and take your chances. And I got two of these that particular night. But somebody sitting at their keyboard could create this image in a heartbeat through digital manipulation. So uh, different ends to different means, but it definitely is of a concern to those of us that have been seeing the evolution of photography throughout the years. I like to encourage folks too to lead by example, and I don't need to tell you folks that. I mean, that's what you're doing, and that's what you're encouraging your scouts to do. But we want to set a good example for other photographers. We do want to, and I because of my background, I'm likely to try to make some corrective comments or measures if I encounter folks doing some, damaging things while they're taking pictures in these areas. But you do need to be cautious about that. And I think just leading by example is a good way to set that good example for folks, especially our young people, and to use our images to promote a positive environmental stewardship. You think back to the Ansel Adams of the world, those types of photographers in those early days. They're part of the reason that we have these protected areas now. The national parks and forests was much because of the work that those early photographers did, bringing that message to the public who hadn't experienced those vast wilderness areas. So I think there's a role that we can all play. And I think it's important, again, just as your programs do, that we share our knowledge and skills. It's leading by example, but like I say, I like to devote a lot of time to young people who have an interest in photography. I collect up old camera equipment and refurbish it and provide it to local schools and in different institutions that want to start planting the seed for photography. And I've just seen great growth out of that, and have seen the 4-H entries have vastly improved from all of our efforts as leaders. So don't hesitate to have your folks share what they've gleaned and what they've learned with others. And I think most importantly, and one of your folks just kind of alluded to it with the camporee, we need to support these agencies and these organizations that provide the stewardship for these areas because, and I kind of swore I wouldn't climb on any soapbox here today, but my history has taught me that we're in very dangerous times right now, and these lands are threatened, and they're threatened from above, not from necessarily within or from us, but above, from those people that should know better. And we need to positively promote and support and be there to purchase our recreation lands passes for $80. It's the best $80 we can spend because the monetary support to care for these areas is kind of threatened. And so that's all I'll say on that. But we do need to be conscious of what our role is in the future and where this direction is going to go. And there's a lot of, like I said, there's cities, counties, states, federal governments, federal organizations. There are private organizations, the conservation agencies, the Sierra Club, and some of those other organizations that lobby hard for protection of these recreation and wilderness resources. They need our support. And by promoting kind of the ethics in our little part of the world as photographers, I think will go a long way to helping. And this is the slide you've been waiting for. So the end. So kind of a whirlwind adventure for you there. I tried to hit some of the high points. Again, it's not, I kind of took the avenue of the ethical, with the ethics of it rather than strictly a how-to. Anybody can go to YouTube and learn how to drive a camera. Um, but I think this is important, and I really thank you for giving me the time to share some of my thoughts along these lines. So with that, I'd be happy to open up to any questions you might have, or on any topic regarding photography or whatever. I'm happy to help answer. Thank you
Thanks,
very
Marty.
much.
Thank you, Marty. Hey, if you got a question, please pop it in the chat. We'd love to have any questions you have right now. Oh, a bunch today.
Got some?
No, we're quiet right now. Oh,
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 I couldn't have
yeah.
been that good.
Well, you got to thank you for your great photos and some of the concerning ones. And yeah, people are loving your photographs.
Oh,
So
thank you. Thank you.
yeah. So what's the one animal that people consistently underestimate as a danger?
Well, in our experience out here, I would have to say it's the bison. Um, they they seem pretty docile, and they seem like just big teddy bears. We don't see much for bears out in this part of the country, but those by their nature should be scary just on their own pretext. But I think the bison, that's where we have the majority of negative encounters. Um, but you know, the snakes that we have, we've got a lot of snakes out here too that people are kind of intrigued with. And we've got some imitators that are totally harmless but look very much like some of our rattlesnakes. And so we have frequent occasions for those kind of encounters as well. But I'd have to say probably the bison are the big ones. The pronghorn antelope, the deer, they keep their distance and they're pretty wary.
I have a question for you here.
Sure.
Oh my goodness, there went my brain bubble again. I'm having brain bubbles. It's been a big day. But I was gonna say, today, and most people's cameras are like mine. This is the one, I'm
Yep.
carrying around, and it really makes it easy when you take a picture to immediately share it. And you brought up in your talk about think about what are the implications of how you share that and stuff. Can I ask if you just expand on that a bit? I mean, what could go wrong with sharing a picture you just took?
Well, for the most part, it's probably totally harmless. And it's more like gee, having a great time, wish you were here when you provide that picture and you share it with your friends or family. Where I'm concerned about it, the picture I had of the great gray owl, there are a number of situations where, again, these species are really desired by photographers. They like to add these to their portfolio. And some of the areas have become now the great gray owl that I had was in northern Minnesota, north of just northwest of Duluth, in a little place called Sax Sim Bog. And people come from all over the country in the wintertime in search of that great gray owl. They now have groups. It's kind of like a group chat, or they have a notification system that's online and on their phones. That if somebody cites an owl, all they have to do is hit this and notify this long chain of however many people could be there, and they're all going to flock to that area. And that's the thing that I'm concerned about, just that stampeding of people to an area that is the habitat of this particular species. So those are the big things. The baiting has been a major issue where there have been some unscrupulous guides that have gone out and baited. They've gone out and fed with frozen lab rats or something like that, where they've gone out and tried to bait in those owls so they would fly in and be there for that iconic wings out landing shot in the snow. And but what you do is then you basically habituate that owl or whatever that critter is that you're baiting in. They expect that. It's just like putting out bird feeders. There's different schools of thought about setting all sorts of bird feeders out in the summertime because then the birds don't, learn how to forage. They become reliant on us. And so those types of things and those interactions have a negative impact that we don't often see on the species that we're trying, passionately to photograph. So those are kind of the two angles that I was concerned about. There's different types of calls that you can use to call in, the squealing rabbit call to bring in the coyotes to get a better picture. Those have been a spring off from the hunters that do that, and they call in and they bait in. Only when I shoot somebody with my cannon, it lives to see another day. But it's the same philosophy where there are different, I guess there's different opinions as to just how desirable that is to call in and alter their behaviors for our benefit. Great
So
question, though.
it is. And so here's kind of a follow-on question. What what kind of considerations do you think there are around taking pictures that have people in them? You know, particularly people that you may or well, you may know them or you may not.
Mhm, mhm. Well, that's an issue all around for photography. Um, the bottom line is that you should be very, very cautious. We talked about being courteous. You should be very, very cautious, especially in this day and age, especially when children are involved. Um, what I typically do when I take a picture that's got people in it, I will visit with them. I will ask if it's okay, and if they're willing to, I try not to have recognizable faces. Um, but for what I'm using for my purposes, I try to limit unless they're participants in a workshop where they've basically given me permission to use theirs. And you saw some of those in here. But realistically, out in the public, at these public resources or public areas, whether it be in a city or whatever, we don't really have a reasonable expectation of privacy. And I'm not a lawyer, and there are lawyers that are paid good money to deal with the intricacies of this. But realistically, if you're in a public place, you're, it's fair game. But again, courtesy is a big thing. And photographing underage children, minors, is something that people should just stay away from, especially again in this day and age. Um, but if you're going to, the distinction is if you're going to be using your image for publication or for commercial release, so you're going to sell prints or something like that, then any recognizable person in that image, you must have a signed model release for them, authorizing you to use that image. But for what I use for my workshops and educational things like this, um, it's uh, it's not an issue until it is. Let's put it that way.
Thanks. So another question came in, and that is about with AI. You brought up AI, and AI photos are getting more and more able to fool people. I don't know how you say that. More,
They're getting
more
much
believable.
more
Maybe that's
realistic,
the
yeah,
way to
more
say it.
believable. Yeah, it's a
And
dangerous thing.
yeah, and do you have any guidance on, or is there any ways we can maybe start to tell how some things are different? I mean, with people, you say look at the hands because
Yeah, count
apparently
the
AI
fingers.
always has trouble with hands. But
Yeah.
what about nature and any giveaways to look for you can think of?
Well, yes, there are. I'm sure, and there's more than what I've encountered. You know, it's gotten much better recently, and it used to be very obvious to my eye just because of my familiarity with many of these species. It drives me absolutely bonkers to see all these memes of, well, locally, they say the beautiful Black Hills or Sylvan Lake or the beautiful Teton Mountains. I've been there enough to know that these are not even closely representative, but 90% of the public who's never been there, they don't know. They accept it at face value. And that's the dangerous thing of AI. We're misleading, we're miseducating and misinforming a whole population just based on fantasy. I mean, these are just fantasies that are designed. These are artworks. They're interpretive artworks rather than reality. It's still art, like I mentioned. I mean, it's still perfectly legal, perfectly acceptable, unless they steal my picture of this white-tailed deer and use that as the basis for their herd of deer that they saw supposedly in such and such a park. That's where I'm concerned about it. It's the misuse of it, the misrepresentation, and not disclosing the fact. All those pictures that, not all of them, but you all seen them. those beautiful pictures of the Milky Way, the full arch of the Milky Way over some canyon or some mountain or something like that. Well, those are digitally manipulated. They aren't the actual scene. They could be stacked, stitched together panoramas of, 20, 30 images, all combined and composited in order to create that image. So is it a misrepresentation? No, it's an artistic interpretation, but it's not the real thing. But you mentioned used to be we could count the fingers and be tipped off. But AI in the next couple of years is going to be so realistic you won't even be able to tell. That you can tell by in video, AI videos, watch the lips if they're speaking. The lips are never really totally in sync. And that could be with the animal actions too. You may see some little jitter spasms of some of the actions that they have. There's tip-offs, but they're going to be harder to spot as time goes on.
Thanks.
The,
Well,
the
we're running
big,
out of time. I'm going to give you one more question, if I might here.
okay, sounds good.
Um, what are some easy tips that you could give to our youth when taking photographs of wildlife and landscapes? Or how can they get a good picture?
Well, the first thing is understand your camera, know how the camera works, regardless of what type of camera it is. Doesn't matter if it's a phone or a point and shoot or whatever. Understand how it works because just about every camera enables you to adjust some settings for different impact. So you want to understand how your camera works. The other thing is you need to have a vision. The first step is to have a vision in your mind of what it is you want to create with that photograph. Because when you take a picture of this scene that you're standing in front of and you bring it back home and you show it to me, I wasn't there. So what's the story? Be clear about the story you want to tell with your image and compose the different subjects in that image to that end. Um, Composition, learn the kind of the guide of composition, how to arrange things. Simple things like rule of thirds, how never put your subject right in the center of your image, put it off to one side, have them looking into the picture. Those types of things are really, when I judge photographs, the composition and how you arrange the subjects is usually the thing that could be improved in most images to make them better. So have a vision, understand how your camera works, and focus in on composition to help tell that story to your viewer.
Thank you, Marty. Well, Marty has said he can hang around after the roundtable if people want to chat then. And Marty, it has been a wonderful presentation. I thank you so much for talking to us this evening. And I know we all learned a lot. And probably more importantly than that, you've made us think. And that's a good thing. Thank you
Well,
very much.
thanks. Yep, I appreciate the invite and I wish you all well.
Thanks. And
Do you have an
I'm going.
Instagram account we can follow or somewhere we can see your photos online?
I don't. I am on Facebook, either personally as Marty DeWitt or the Sioux Falls Camera Club. I'm currently the president of the Camera Club, and so the I'm you can contact me through them as well. But you'll see a lot of the different images that I post and our membership posts. So we'd be happy. It's a private group, but just chime in. There's just a couple questions to answer, and just mention that you saw this presentation. I'll let you in because I administer the group too on Facebook. So be happy to let you in to kind of keep track with us.
Thank you. Now, we talked about, the phones are our cameras for most of us, and we take them around everywhere. So this past spring, I was fortunate enough to be able to take a master naturalist class here in Virginia. And that was a 3-month long class, and we had lots of field trips on Saturdays. And it was a great time there were 30 of us in the class to get together and to share ideas and tips and stuff. while we're out. We might be on a forestry hike or whatever. And one of the things we noticed is everybody was pulling out their phone, and we all had several different apps, and we'd be looking at things. And some people would pull out an app and go, "Oh, I didn't know it would do that." And so there's some of this stuff. So I'm this year I'm going to do some occasional short videos here of what's on Paul's phone. I'm going to take you through some of these apps that I've got and just do a quick intro and give you an idea of what's out there with that. So first one I'm going to talk about is called Seek. So I expect a lot of folks know Seek, but here's Paul's take on it.
In this short demo, I'll introduce you to the Seek app. The app is available on both Android and iPhones. I think of Seek as the beginner version of iNaturalist. While iNaturalist requires logging in and is focused on citizen science and has a lot of options, Seek is focused on ease of use and learning, particularly for youth. After you start up Seek, at the top of the screen you'll see your location and all species. Right below that you'll see a row of photos of nearby species that you can look for. If you tap on all species, you can narrow what's shown in the what's nearby photos to a class, such as mammals, plants, insects, and so on. This is a great tool to get you primed for what you can look for. If you want to learn more about a species, say the eastern tiger swallowtail you see here, you can tap that photo to learn more. If you tap the location up above, you can change it to a place you're planning to go to so you can plan ahead and prepare. I spotted some fresh shells by the shore. What are they? Tapping on the camera icon at the bottom brings up the camera, but first it displays important safety and outdoor ethics reminders. I had to zoom my phone in so the app's AI could figure out what it was I was looking at. At first, it was just able to narrow it down to a family, river mussels. Since that seemed to be the best I was going to get, I tapped the camera button and went to the next screen. It gave me two options. I could try to take another photo, or I could explore nearby species of this family online and try to pick out what I saw. Well, since the mussel was dead already, I decided that I could flip over the shell and try taking another photo. Aha! Now I was able to narrow it down to a species, paper pond shell. I tapped the camera icon and the party started. I got a badge for finding my first mollusk. To learn more about paper pond shell, I tapped View Species. All right, another award. I've seen 3 species on Seek. Moving past that, here's more information about the paper pond shell. It starts with some information from Wikipedia. Then there's a range map which also shows where people have identified the species in iNaturalist. Seek doesn't share any of your information, including your identifications. iNaturalist does share. You can zoom in and out on the range map to get an idea of how the species is distributed and how common it is in different areas. Moving back from the range map, scrolling down, I see that there have been reports of 6 nearby iNaturalist sightings and over 2,000 worldwide sightings. There's also a graph showing when you're most likely to see the species. Finally, at the bottom of the app, it shows some similar species and a camera button to start a new ID. Well, that's the Seek app. I think you now have a good idea of why I think it's a great tool to use with youth.
All right. So I hope that was helpful to you, and you maybe learned something that you didn't know, and it's always there. So I'll be exploring some more of my apps as we go through the rest of this program year. Now it's time to move on to announcements. Leave No Trace Level 2 instructor courses. Why do you want to become an instructor? Because Marty brought that up before. We want our youth to be good stewards of the outdoors. And Level 2 course is all about learning how do you teach other people to teach the youth to be good stewards. So we want to give our kids the right tools so that they can be successful as stewards of the world as we turn it over to them. That's why you want to do this course. So coming up, these are the courses remaining for this year. As I mentioned before, Right now, Michelle Bierstedt is in Oregon leading a level 2 course, and sounds like a great place to be right now, actually. So uh, these classes are coming up. If you want to attend a class, but funding is an issue, we do have partial scholarships available, and there's information on how to get them on the Dan Howells scholarship page of our website. And please, please don't let the funding be an issue for why you don't take a level 2 course. We want more people to do that. Scouting for clean waterways. It's still summertime. It's still a great time um, to do scouting for clean waterways activities. So once again, you can sign up online to get updates on the program. It's been hugely successful so far, and we want it to be even more so. So please encourage units to do that, to participate. Finally, Ted, could you please tell us a little bit about Richard Cole?
Yeah. So for those who hadn't heard, Richard Cole passed away in June. And I was very fortunate to work directly with Richard. He was one of my zone coordinators when I was still working more intimately with the Outdoor Ethics and Conservation Committee. So I'd known Richard on the phone. We had talked, we had emailed, but he came out to Vermont in 2022 when we were running a training at the PTC. And what struck me about Richard was his absolute just dedication to making sure that folks back home in Tennessee were going to get the high quality outdoor ethics training experience that he had had. And he really wanted to build those foundations for the next generation of people. And he came back so fired up from that conference at Philmont that we worked really hard to put together a level 2 course back in Tennessee. I unfortunately was not able to go out and train at it, but I was able to fly out and be there for the final night and the banquet and to speak a little bit about conservation awards and such, and spend some time hiking with the group and really got to know them well. And so there are some funny pictures wandering about with Richard and myself in them. They were a really entertaining group of individuals. And I was just checking through my old emails from Richard, and a couple months after that, he was noticing just like how fired up folks were about doing outdoor ethics and leave no trace in Tennessee. And so that's really a tribute to his dedication and who he was as a scouter to just really build those foundations for the future. And so I'm going to miss my friend Richard, and it's a real blow to Tennessee and the folks in that area to lose his guidance and his leadership. So really missing my friend Richard today.
Thanks, Ted. The National Outdoor Conference is our next topic, and that's coming up next month. I believe there's still a little time to register. If you haven't already, encourage you to do that. It not only is a great place to learn a lot, it's a great place to network and connect with like-minded people. It's always best to be part of a team if you can get to the conference. This one's about pictures. Yeah, okay, for the last 2 or 3 years, I've been asking people to send in pictures. I know you all are taking pictures, okay? In the 2 or 3 years, I think if I count myself, there have been 4 people submitted pictures. Okay, I know you guys are holding out on me, so please send pictures in if you've got them. If you don't know how to submit them because they're too big and you don't want to email them or something, just send an email to roundtable@scouting-oec.org. That'll go to the team, and I'll get back to you, or somebody will, and we'll set up for you to share pictures with us. We'd love to see your pictures and share them. And since Matt, you're on this picture, this is your picture, so thank you, Matt. See, I'll call out and we'll say thank you to you even. So thank you so much. Finally, your feedback is a gift. So if this roundtable was helpful, we'd like to hear that. If you've got suggestions for us, we'd like to hear that. What would you like to see covered in future roundtables? We'd love to hear that. I know what tends to happen because I look in the mirror and I see myself do this. Oh, I'll do that tomorrow when I have a break at work. Okay, well, that did work once, but most of the time it doesn't. So if you can, just take a few minutes right at the end of this roundtable and shoot us a note with your thoughts. It would be so much appreciated. We want to make this the best it can be for you. And without hearing from you, it's just relying on our amazing psychic powers. And so they're great, but we need help. So thanks. To close, I have my Leopold quote for the month. I call these terraces the hanging gardens, for out of their sodden muck have lifted blue jewels. Such an October gentian, dusted with tamarack gold, is worth a full stop and a long look, even when the dog signals grass ahead. So that's from October. I kind of jumped the gun. This is August, but I thought this one fit real well with photography because I wanted to, when you go out, stop and think, what is it that attracts your eye, and why did that attract your eye? So when you're out there, in the beautiful, blue flowers are what caught Leopold's eye here. Why did they catch his eye? Why does the flower look like that? Ask those kinds of questions of your kids when you're out there. Have them stop and look. It's a great idea, take a picture of it and learn more about it. Get back to that seek stuff I was talking about. You can use that at home too to learn more about it. So take this opportunity when you're outside and enjoy the beauty God gave us and think about, well, why do I find that beautiful? Why does that attract me? And in this one, was I attracted by the flowers, but my dog was very much interested in the grouse. So let's think about some of those things as well. Well, that brings us to the end of our roundtable for this evening. Thank you so much to everybody who came. As always, this recording will be posted online, probably we shoot for about a week to get it posted. And sometimes it takes a little longer. Sorry about that. But we'll have that posted, and you can also see past roundtables there as well.
Thank you so much for attending. We'll see you next month.